Hello, welcome to Capital Sensei. Today, we're going to break down one of the most influential business books of the 21st century, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. We'll explore its core philosophy, from the famous build, measure, learn feedback loop to the concept of a minimum viable product, or MVP. We will also dive into how to properly measure progress using something called innovation accounting, and the critical decision every founder has to make. Whether to pivot or persevere, whenever we can, we try to answer questions in the comments section. The best way to learn is by sharing experiences and asking about what isn't clear. So please, feel free to comment with your questions, your own startup stories, or your thoughts on these ideas. It helps everyone in the community learn together. So, let's start with the central problem Eric Ries set out to solve. Why do so many new businesses fail? For decades, the standard playbook was to write a detailed 5-year business plan. You'd spend months doing market research, creating financial projections, and outlining every single feature of your product. The problem is, this entire process is built on a mountain of unproven assumptions. It's like trying to predict the weather 5 years from now. It's a work of fiction. A traditional business plan is like planning an elaborate cross-country road trip from New York to Los Angeles. You map out every single turn, every gas station stop, every meal, and every hotel before you've even turned the key in the ignition. But what happens when you hit an unexpected road closure in Ohio or a massive traffic jam in St. Louis? Your entire meticulous plan falls apart because it made no contact with reality. The lean startup method is the opposite. It's like having a modern GPS. You know your destination is Los Angeles, but you start driving, and the GPS constantly recalculates the best route based on real-time traffic, accidents, and road conditions. It's a dynamic, responsive way to navigate the journey. At the heart of this philosophy is a new definition of what a startup actually is. A startup, according to Ries, is a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. The key phrase there is extreme uncertainty. It doesn't matter if you're two founders in a garage or a special projects team inside a giant corporation like General Electric. If your mission is to navigate a fog of unknowns to find a sustainable business model, you are a startup. Given this uncertainty, the primary goal of a startup isn't to make stuff, make money, or even serve customers from day one. The primary goal is to learn. Specifically, to learn what you need to build to create a sustainable business. Ries calls this validated learning. It's the process of systematically and rigorously turning your initial guesses and assumptions into hard facts. Every action a startup takes should be an experiment designed to answer a question and generate this validated learning. Think of it like being a scientist in a lab. You have a hypothesis. For example, I believe that busy parents will pay $20 a month for a service that delivers healthy, pre-packaged school lunches. A traditional entrepreneur would go and build a massive industrial kitchen, hire 100 employees, and launch a huge marketing campaign based on that guess. A lean entrepreneur treats it like a scientific hypothesis. They design an experiment to test it in the cheapest, fastest way possible. This brings us to the engine of the lean startup, the single most famous concept from the book, the build, measure, learn feedback loop. It's a continuous cycle that you should be running as quickly as possible. You start with an idea. You build a very basic version of a product to test that idea. You measure how customers respond to it in the real world, and then you learn from that data to decide what to do next. Should you change the idea? Should you build something different? Let's break down each part. The build phase isn't about building your entire grand vision. It's about building a minimum viable product, or MVP. This is a term that gets thrown around a lot and is often misunderstood. An MVP is not just a buggy, half-baked version of your final product. It is the smallest, simplest thing you can build, to start the process of learning from your customers. Its goal is to test your most fundamental assumptions with the least amount of effort and development time. Let me give you a classic example. Dropbox. When founder Drew Houston first had the idea for a seamless file syncing service, the technical challenge was enormous. Building a fully functional, reliable prototype would have taken years and millions of dollars. Instead of doing that, what did he do for his MVP? He made a video. It was a simple 3-minute screencast that showed what Dropbox would look like and how it would work. He narrated it himself, showing a file being dropped into a folder on one computer and instantly appearing on another. He then shared this video online. The response was overwhelming. Their beta waiting list exploded from 5,000 people to 75,000 people overnight. That video was the MVP. It cost almost nothing to make, but it generated a massive amount of validated learning. It proved definitively that people desperately wanted the solution he was proposing. He validated his core assumption without writing a single line of production-level code. That's the power of a true MVP. Every new venture is built on what Ries calls leap of faith assumptions. These are the 2 or 3 biggest, riskiest beliefs upon which your entire business idea rests. If they are wrong, the whole thing collapses. The MVP's job is to test these assumptions. The first is the value hypothesis, which tests whether a product or service really delivers value to customers once they are using it. Do they actually get a benefit from it? The second is the growth hypothesis, which tests how new customers will discover a product or service. Imagine you want to start a gourmet dog food delivery service. Your value hypothesis is that dog owners are willing to pay a premium for fresh, human-grade food for their pets. Your growth hypothesis might be that they will discover your service through targeted Instagram ads featuring cute dogs. Your MVP doesn't need to be a full-scale delivery operation. It could be you in your own kitchen, making food for 10 local dog owners for a month. This small-scale experiment tests both hypotheses directly. Do they keep paying? That tests value. How did they find you? That tests growth. Once you've built your MVP and have it in the hands of real users, even if it's just a handful, you move to the measure phase of the loop. This is where many entrepreneurs go wrong. They focus on what Ries calls vanity metrics. These are numbers that look good on a chart, but don't actually tell you anything meaningful about the health of your business. Things like the total number of signups or total page views. These numbers almost always go up and to the right, which feels great, but they can easily mask serious problems. Imagine you run a website and proudly announce you got 1 million hits last month. That's a vanity metric. It sounds impressive, but what if 990,000 of those people were bots, or people who landed on your site by accident and left after 2 seconds? The number is meaningless. It doesn't tell you if you have a real business. Instead, the lean startup advocates for actionable metrics. These are metrics that show clear cause and effect and can help you make decisions. An actionable metric isn't total users. It's the percentage of new users who come back and use the product a second time within a week. It's not total revenue. It's the lifetime value of a customer acquired through a specific Facebook ad campaign versus the cost of that campaign. To get these actionable metrics, Ries recommends a technique called cohort analysis. This sounds technical, but the idea is simple. Instead of looking at all your users as one big, cumulative group, you break them down into cohorts based on when they signed up. For example, you have the January cohort, everyone who joined in January. the February cohort, and so on. You then track the behavior of each cohort separately over time. Why is this so powerful? Let's say in February, you change the color of the Buy Now button on your website from blue to green. If you only look at your overall conversion rate, you might not see a clear impact. But with a cohort analysis, you can see that maybe 10% of the January cohort made a purchase, but 15% of the February cohort did. Now you have evidence that your change had a positive effect. You are learning. This is what Ries calls innovation accounting. It's a way of accounting for progress when you don't have profits and revenue yet. Your progress is measured in validated learning. This brings us to the final and most crucial part of the loop: learn. After you've built your MVP and measured the results with actionable metrics, you face a critical decision. Do you persevere on your current path, or do you pivot? Persevering means you've seen positive results. Your hypotheses are being validated, and the data suggests you should keep going, optimizing, and iterating on your current strategy. You continue tuning the engine. A pivot, on the other hand, is a structured course correction designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis about the product, strategy, and engine of growth. It's not just a small change. It's a major strategic shift. And crucially, it's not an admission of failure. It's an admission that your initial hypothesis was wrong, and you are now using the validated learning you've acquired to make a smarter bet. A pivot is a recognition that you've learned something so significant that it requires a new direction. There are several types of pivots. One is the zoom-in pivot. This happens when what you thought was just one feature of your product turns out to be the most valuable thing, and it becomes the entire product. The most famous example of this is Instagram. It originally started as a location-based social network called Bourbon. It had check-ins, plans, and photos. But the founders noticed that while people weren't using the check-in features much, they were using the photo sharing and filter features obsessively. They made the brave decision to pivot, throwing away everything else and focusing solely on simple, beautiful photo sharing. The result was Instagram. Another common type is the customer segment pivot. This is when you realize your product solves a real problem, but for a completely different group of people than you originally intended. You might have built a powerful scheduling tool for corporate executives, only to find that your only real traction is with freelance artists who use it to manage their commissions. A pivot would mean refocusing your entire marketing, pricing, and feature development on that new customer segment. Then there's the platform pivot, where a company might shift from being a single application to becoming a platform that other people can build on, or vice versa. The key is that a pivot isn't a random shot in the dark. It's a new strategic hypothesis that is itself testable. You use the build, measure, learn loop to test your pivot, just as you tested your original idea. This disciplined process of pivoting is what allows startups to find a path to success instead of running headfirst into a wall. So, once you've gone through enough loops and your pivots have led you to something that truly works, what's called product market fit, the next phase is to accelerate. This is where you step on the gas. The lean startup offers specific principles for how to grow quickly without breaking everything. The first, and perhaps most counterintuitive, is the principle of small batches. Our intuition, trained by mass production, tells us that it's more efficient to do things in large batches. If you have 100 letters to send, it feels faster to fold all 100 letters first, then stuff all 100 envelopes, then seal all 100, and finally stamp all 100. The problem is, this method is incredibly risky and surprisingly slow in terms of a finished product. What if you discover after folding all 100 letters that they don't fit in the envelopes? You've wasted a massive amount of effort. The small batch approach says you should process one letter at a time. Fold one, stuff it, seal it, stamp it, and put it in the done pile. Then start the next one. The time to get the first complete letter ready to mail is much, much shorter. More importantly, if you discover a problem on letter number 2, say the stamps aren't sticking, you've only wasted a tiny amount of effort. You can fix the problem immediately and continue. This principle applies directly to product development. Instead of a 9-month release cycle, where hundreds of features are built in a big batch, you push out small changes, one at a time, continuously. This leads to the practice of continuous deployment, which is common in a lot of tech companies today. This means that as soon as a developer finishes a new feature or a bug fix, it's automatically tested and deployed to real customers, sometimes within minutes. This sounds terrifying to a traditional manager. What about quality control? The key is to have a robust system of automated testing. By deploying in tiny individual batches, you can see the impact of each change immediately. If something breaks, it's easy to identify the cause and roll it back. This accelerates the build, measure, learn loop to lightning speed. As you accelerate, you need to understand your engine of growth. Ries argues that all sustainable growth comes from one of 3 engines. You need to know which engine your business runs on and focus all your energy on tuning it. The first is the sticky engine of growth. This model is all about customer retention. The goal is to make your product so essential that customers stick around for a long time. Growth happens when your rate of new customer acquisition is higher than your churn rate, which is the rate at which existing customers leave. Think of a service like Netflix or your mobile phone provider. Their main focus is keeping the customers they have because it's much cheaper than constantly acquiring new ones. The second is the viral engine of growth. In this model, growth is a direct consequence of customers using the product. It's word of mouth on steroids. The key metric here is the viral coefficient. If every new user brings in, on average, more than one other new user, you have viral growth. For example, if your viral coefficient is 1.2, it means for every 10 customers who sign up, they will bring in 12 more, who will then bring in over 14 more, and so on. The growth becomes exponential. The classic example was Hotmail, which automatically added a signature to every outgoing email. P.S. Get your free email at Hotmail. Every time a user sent an email, they were marketing the service. The third is the paid engine of growth. This is the most traditional model. You pay to acquire new customers, typically through advertising or sales teams. This engine is sustainable as long as one simple equation holds true. The lifetime value of a customer, LTV, must be greater than the cost per acquisition, CAC. In other words, the total profit you will make from a single customer over their entire relationship with you must be more than what you paid to get them in the door. As an investor, this is one of the first things I look at. If a company can spend $100 to acquire a customer who will generate $500 in profit, they have a money-making machine. Their main challenge is to pour more money into that machine without breaking it. Finally, to help maintain quality and solve problems as you scale and move quickly, Ries introduces a powerful but simple technique borrowed from Toyota's production system, the 5 whys. When something goes wrong, a server crashes, a customer complains, a manufacturing defect occurs, you don't just fix the surface-level problem. You ask why 5 times to get to the root cause. This prevents the same problem from happening over and over. Let's walk through an example. A new software update crashes your company's website. Problem: the website is down. First, why? Because a buggy piece of code was deployed. Second, why was the code buggy? Because it wasn't tested properly before release. Third, why wasn't it tested properly? because the developer was under pressure to meet a deadline, and the testing process is slow and cumbersome. Fourth, why is the testing process so slow? Because the company's automated testing suite is outdated and fails frequently. Fifth, why hasn't the company invested in upgrading the testing suite? Because it wasn't considered a budget priority compared to developing new features. Look at the difference. The surface-level problem was bad code. The root cause is a systemic, organizational problem of underinvesting in critical infrastructure. The 5 Whys method turns a moment of finger-pointing at a single developer into a constructive opportunity to improve the entire system. It forces a deeper level of thinking and leads to much more robust solutions. The lean startup, in essence, provides a scientific methodology for navigating the chaos and uncertainty of creating something new. It's a framework that prioritizes speed, learning, and customer-centric iteration over rigid planning and intuition. It teaches us that the key to success is not having the best initial idea, but having the best process for improving that idea. It shifts the focus from "can we build this?" to "should we build this?" and "can we build a sustainable business around this?" This approach isn't just for software startups in Silicon Valley. Its principles can be applied anywhere there is uncertainty. A restaurant can use MVPs to test new menu items as specials before committing to them. A large corporation can use the build, measure, learn loop to test a new product line in a single market before a national rollout. Even a nonprofit can use innovation accounting to measure the impact of its programs and pivot its strategy to better serve its community. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about management, innovation, and what it truly takes to turn an idea into a lasting enterprise. It's about managing a portfolio of options, de-risking ideas through experimentation, and having the courage to change course when the evidence tells you to. And from an investor's perspective, a team that embraces this methodology is a much safer bet than one with a beautiful but fictional 5-year plan.